welcome to the first of hopefully many YouTube videos about books, because I like books and probably other things, knowing me. Preference this by saying I'll be making all my videos off of a camera of a phone, in which case, if you can't tell, the camera's actually here. This is the camera, but I'm looking at myself because, you get. I'm sure anyone who's ever recorded anything knows me. If you couldn't tell by the video, this will be January 2021 books. 2022, not 2021. It's a new year. That's concerning. Anyways, also want to preface saying I have no idea how to edit. I'm just gonna do one take. Hopefully it's good. Call it done. So let's get into it, shall we? So I wrote down all the books I'm reading in here so I can keep track of them all and not have to look at my phone. So, So whenever I finish a book goes in here, and it's January 22. My writing's horrible, we're not gonna talk about that. So, my goal, 100 books. How many books did I read? Hold up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books. I read 11 books in January. I think that's quite good. Don't know if I'll keep with this pace, because I'm already dwindling. I didn't read a single book in the last week of January. But I'm in university, it's how it be. But nonetheless, let's get started with the books. So first book I read, I actually started December 31st. Then I put the book down and refused to read it until January 1st because I knew this would be a great way to start my year. Was Iron Widow, but I'm going to pronounce their name wrong. Xiran Jay Zhao? I think they made Iron Widow. I loved it. I read it in one sitting, essentially. I sat down, I read a few pages, I'm like, nope, you're reading this later. So then I read it later. It was so good. It was very, how do I put this? I thought it was very fantasy with dystopian or sci-fi aspects. Not dystopian, sci-fi aspects. It takes place in, I don't know if it actually takes place in China per se, but if it's just really heavily based off Chinese culture. I'm the worst person to talk about this, but because I know very, very little. But from my perspective, it was a very good book. I really enjoyed it. I liked the character. It was I'm terrible at reviews. If you want, sorry, I keep getting notifications on my computer and it makes me look. If you want me to actually have a review for something, I can do that. But for these purposes, to keep them short, I have little things. It was my first book of the year and it got 5 stars, as it deserved. It was so good. 5 stars. I thought it was quite fast paced, personally. As I said, I read in one sitting. It says read in 2 days, literally 2 days. It was amazing. It is quite dark and it is tense, and I didn't put this down in my book because it was emotional. Last 200 pages, I was like, what's going on? It is very, and I will say has some LGBTQIA plus stuff going on in there, which is always nice because you don't always get stuff like that in books, especially popular books. I find that's not very often, so that was a cool addition to the story. And also the thing is, I want to point out the romances, they were there, but it wasn't it was the main point of the story, which I enjoyed. I love romance, don't get me wrong. I love the good old because I like romance. Romance is good. I used to say I hate romance, and I'm like, why am I hating on romance? It's a good genre. But not every book needs the sole purpose to be romance, and I liked that about this one. It wasn't super, yeah. Also, I'm also gonna say the page number because I feel like some people don't like super long books. Some people don't like short books. It was 400 pages, and I think the second book is coming out this year or next year. Don't quote me on that. So 400 pages, if that's an average book, I would say. The next book I read was The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, which I have read before. Believe it or not, I've read almost all of her books. I love Holly Black's writing. I love stuff about fae and magic and fantasy. That type of stuff is just my jam. I love that type of stuff. I gave it only 3.5 stars though, purely because I found it was really, coming off of reading Iron Widow, it wasn't as intense and as exciting as I wanted it to be, but it was still very good, and it wasn't a bad book by any means. I also literally just finished reading, what's it called? The Folk of the Air trilogy, like a week before I read this book, like during Christmas holidays. So yeah, I personally think those books are way better than that one, Holly Black's, personally. I said it was about medium paced. Like, it wasn't like, I have read it before, so probably also neither, but it wasn't like sit on the edge of your seat, what's gonna happen. It was more, it's here, we're here. Yeah, it's fantasy, as I said. I also didn't want to put this out. Whatever. There are romances again in this book. Again, I don't think they're the most main point. Maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't think it was the main point. There was some more LGBTQIA plus stuff going on. But I don't think he's even marketed that, because it was very like society, which is very casual, which I like when stuff's casual and it's not just like it's such a big deal. It's like, I don't know, this is happening. I'm like, cool, that's the thing. So that's in there. And it's also 336 pages, so it's a pretty short book. Like, as far as like a chapter book or a novel goes, it's pretty short. The next book I think I read in like a day or 2 days. I read it so quickly. Serpent and Dove by Shelby Marin. I'm sorry, I'm butchering all the names. But yes, I love this book. I just got the second one off hold, so I will be reading that probably very shortly. 4.5. I didn't even describe, whatever. Some of these I'll be describing what they're about, some of them I won't be. I'm bad at this. It's new. I will get better, I promise. 4.5 stars, medium paced, right? It hooked me, but because Iron Widow was my first read of the year, that is what I'm basing everything off of. So if it's not like hooking me the way Iron Widow did, it's not super fast paced, So yeah, it was fantasy with, I would say, more romance. Like, it was definitely heavier on the romance. It was enemies to lovers trope, which we love. We love enemies to lover. Like, also, I don't know if any of this is spoilers. Does that count as spoilers? I don't know. Enemies to lovers, love that. It was like witches and some like religion stuff, and like I would say the witches were more like culty witches. That's how I read it. And pages is about 513, so it's a bit of a longer one, but I did read it quickly. This next one messed me up. Like, it freaked me out. I read it in one sitting because I was like, what's happening? It was confusing. I barely understand what's happening, but I heard the next 2 books from a YouTuber I literally just watched yesterday, that the next 2 books got even better and they wrote different characters, and oh my goodness. It was Carnival by Stephanie Garber. Or Carnival, sorry. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars, purely only 4 stars, because it messed me up and freaked me out so much. Like, it was a good book. It was like, we sit down and we're gonna read this, but this is gonna confuse you. It's about like this guy who's like, oh, we want to, like, he's this guy who got internal youth, essentially, from magic. So you can create this world, this carnival, this festival, where you can either take part in it or you can watch. And if you take part in it, it's like a scavenger hunt. And there's all this stuff, and it's magic, and it's very complicated, and I don't even understand half of it. But it was very good, and it kept you on toes. And there were so many plot twists. Like, I got to the one part and near the end, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I got to the very end, and I was like, what? Like, it was a thing and a half. So I put here medium paced, definitely medium paced, but it like keeps you, like it hooks you, and it's like, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere, you're staying here, you're reading this book. But it was more, I didn't put fast paced because I found I wanted to read more because I wanted to know what was happening, not because I found the writing was extremely fast paced, if that makes sense. I said creepy, confusing plot twist as if my notes. That's exactly what it was. It was creepy. If you don't like creepy-ish books, don't read this. I remember I had like a weird dream after I read this. Keep in mind I did finish it like midnight, but that's what that is. And it was 416 pages, so average length, I would say. Yeah. The next book, okay, another Holly Black book, because wanted to read this one a long time. I had no idea what this was going into it. The Coldest Girl in Coal Town by Holly Black. 3.5 stars. It's about like this whole like plague with like a wicked mind during COVID times. Maybe not the greatest book to read because plague, COVID, you know. Essentially it was like infection with like vampires, and it follows this girl and where she like takes someone who's infected, her like ex, and a vampire to a cold town, which is where the vampires and infected live. It was interesting. It was, I would say it's more fantasy because vampires. Medium paced. It was good. I think I read it in 2-ish days. I had lots of time, by the way, at the beginning of January. I had nothing to do, no work, no school, so I was reading. That's why I had so many books for January. I found it creepy. It was good, but it was also low-key really creepy. So keep that in mind. 419 pages, so again, same length. I'm not saying much about it because it was good. It wasn't like nothing extremely memorable to talk about, you know, just vampires stuff. I will say it did kind of redeem vampires for me because I'm still kind of, Twilight has ruined vampires for me a little bit, but that has redeemed them a bit. I will say it was a really cool concept. So yeah. Next one, Fable by Adrienne Young. I was disappointed by this book. I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what I was expecting. This book has been all over Book Talk. And when I mean all over, I mean like I keep getting recommended on Book Talk. And I'm like, I want to read this. So then I finally get a chance to read it, and I'm underwhelmed. Like, the characters were good. Like, there's nothing bad with the characters. The story was good. It was just not that exciting. It wasn't as hype-worthy as everyone made it to be. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I put too much. My expectations were too high going into it. But essentially it was this girl. She's dives for jewels and treasures, and then she trades them for money to hopefully get back onto her dad's ship. But she has to like barter for passage and all this stuff, and she meets people, and it's good. And honestly, the only part that really got me was the end. The end made me want to read the second one because it was a major like, this makes no sense. So yeah, I put slow paced. Fantasy pirates, but they weren't really pirates at the beginning. Like, you do get the pirates land like later, but it's not the main point, which is what I was told, which I think why I was disappointed because I love pirates. And it was a shorter, it was about 368 pages, so you know, a shorter book. This one took me forever to read. I don't know why. It was a good concept. It was 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I hope I said that right. It's 3.5 stars. It was good. I don't know why I didn't like it. It was fantasy. I put medium-paced magic. There was demons, there was dragons, there was all this like sorcery. It was very good. I would like to read the second one, but I can't seem to find it anywhere, so I can't read it. It was, I don't know, it was so, something about it I didn't like, but I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it was the pacing or the characters. I don't know. It was something about it I couldn't quite pinpoint. So that was where I was only 3.5 stars. And it is on a little bit, like, it was an average. It was 464 pages, so not super long, not super short, just middle. This one I had high hopes for because I loved the first 3 books. I read them in like, last time I read them was in high school, so this was a while. But Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, or Snake, whatever, I wrote it down wrong I think, by Susan Collins. Now if you have been anywhere in the book world recently, you'll know this is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. I loved that series. I read that series when I was younger and I absolutely adored it. Also, I want to apologize if you hear beeping. There is stuff happening outside right now and I have no control over that. So, it was 3.5 stars. I loved the beginning. I loved the beginning with like the capital and following Snow, because you follow Cornelius Snow, the President Snow, you follow him as like a teenager. I think about 18 he is. So I loved that. I loved the beginning. I hated the end. I hated the end so much. That's why I didn't get 4 stars or even 4.5. The end was awful in my opinion. I think the end didn't give any sort of like, this makes sense. This is like, it didn't make any sense to me at all. So I put medium pace because there were sections where I was like, I really enjoyed it, so I want to read more. And then there was like, I forgot how many books it was broken up into, but it was like book 1, book 2. You know how you've read books where it's like book 1, book 2, book 3 inside one book. I think it was after they were done in the capital, it got really slow to me and very like not as intense. Like the stakes didn't seem to be very high anymore, so it wasn't very interesting. It wasn't very, it was dystopian. It was gruesome. Let me tell you, I have not read a book that gruesome in a long time. And I read the original trilogy, and I swear that trilogy was not that gruesome. She used language where it was just, it was something. It gave me pictures I did not want to see. But it was good writing. Like, I had, yeah, and I put second half slow. It was about, to me, anything below 5 is medium. Anything below 4 is short, especially below 3. And everything above 5 is long. That's my gauging for thing. It was about 517 pages. So, not super long, not super short. Pretty good. So yeah, the next one I did give 3 stars purely because it wasn't what I was expecting, but it was good, but it was weird, and it was really short. It was The Lost Sisters by Holly Black. It's a short story or novella. I don't really know. It was only 50 pages, so it took me no time at all to read. It was quite dark. It was, if you read the Folk of the Air trilogy, it's Taryn writing a letter to Jude. So it's all a letter to Jude, and apparently she's pretty much confessing. And it's a pretty cool concept. I really enjoyed reading from Taryn's perspective because you never do in the books. It's always Jude's. And it was very interesting. It was very unique, I would say, compared to the rest of the trilogy. I wouldn't jump up and down, but if someone said they really read it, I would definitely be like, oh yeah, I've read it. But it's definitely like, I would be middle, like 3 stars, for sure. Next one, it is my next 5-star read. I loved this series, and I know some people don't because I just saw some videos where people don't like the series. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This book was so good, and I'm so mad that I have to, because I get all my books off the e-library because I am a university student. I can't buy all books. They don't have a second book, so I have to go like 20 minutes in the city to find the book. It's so good though. It's adventurous, emotional, tense. I know some people complain about how the enemies to lovers was really short, but it was like enemies to lovers to enemies to lovers to enemies to friends to not friends, but they kept bouncing back and forth. There was so much stuff going on, and it was just so good. It was very fast paced. In my opinion, that was fast. I wanted to read it all the time. And yeah, fantasy, it was like a kingdom. It was like multiple kingdoms had a treaty, and then there was like this one area that was like, we're not a kingdom, we're like some family who owns this area. And they didn't like the kingdoms, and one of the main characters, the girl, she was this guard, and she had like a whole backstory that's kind of not too happy, and she was a guard of the queen of the one kingdom, and it was a thing. It was good. I don't know how to explain it, but I would recommend reading it for sure. And 512 pages, so it is on the bit of a longer end. Not too long though. The next one I read, I didn't really like. I did give 3 stars purely because I think, if I finish it, it's not under 3 stars. That's my whole thing. Language of Thorns, Midnight Tales, and Dangerous Magic by Leigh Bardugo. I was disappointed. I had no idea what this was. I just knew it was by Leigh Bardugo, and I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. I love Six of Crows, Green Kingdom. I liked Shadow and Bone, didn't like the second one, okay the third one. King of Scars was good. Didn't really like Rude Wolves. It was questionable in my opinion. This one was just a bunch of short stories that took place very vaguely within the world. So it was like just little short stories. It was very slow paced in my opinion. It like took me so long to read and it was very short. It was mysterious and it was adventurous, I would say, and it was like fantasy, as it was said. It does take place in the Grishaverse. So if you like that stuff, you probably really like this. If you want a short read, it was about 288 pages, so you know, nothing too fancy or long, I should say. And yeah, those are the 11 books I read so far this year. I hope I get more of these out. I don't know when I'll be posting this, but it's currently February while I'm filming, so expect all the videos to be a month late. I hope you enjoyed. Tell me in the comments any books you're currently reading, because I always need more suggestions. I'm so behind on my TBR though, like everyone is, but you know, there's that. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys all have a great day or great evening, great morning, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you next time. Bye.